Shalom Aleichem and welcome everybody as Baruch Hashem, we went through Rosh Hashanah and we're coming to Shabbat Shuva, Shabbat Parshat Vayelech. Parshat Vayelech, one of the first mitzvot that we see in Parshat Vayelech is the mitzvah of Hakel, right? It says in Pasuk, Hakel et ha'am, hanashim v'nashim v'hataf. It's the 612th mitzvah of the Torah. And Hakel took place once every 7 years on the first day of Chol HaMoed Sukkot, following the Shemitah year. Every man, woman, and child was required to come to the Beit HaMikdash, and specific portions of Chumash Devarim would be read. Now, it says that the men, the woman, and the children. So the Gemara, Maseches Chagigo, tells us, the men came to learn. The woman came to hear. So before we go down to the children, we have to first understand, women coming to hear? Okay, the men coming to learn, I understand. You're listening, you're learning, you're absorbing it, you're changing yourself through it. The women are just coming to hear it? What's the point? Well, let's say if there's a man who's not learned and comes and he just hears it. What's the point of just listening to it? So the Ben Ish Chai, in his Sefer, Ben Yehoyada, he says over here such an interesting concept. He says that whenever one listens to Torah and he doesn't understand it, he or she doesn't understand it, just listening to words of Torah gives him the ability to learn that Torah in Olam Haba. So if you listen to a shir and you have no idea what the rabbi is saying, you have no idea what the shir is going on, but if you listen, when you get up to the next world, the opportunity will be given to you to hear it again and understand it. He brings from the Zohar HaKadosh, from Parshat Shalach. The Zohar HaKadosh says that there's thousands and thousands of Nashim Tzidkaniot in Olam Haba who sit at the Heichel of Gan Eden. And they are learning Torah from Bitya Bat Paro, Serach Bat Asher, Yocheved, Miriam, and other holy women of the Klal Yisrael. They're sitting there teaching Torah at the Heichel of Gan Eden. The Zohar HaKadosh, the way the Ben Ish Chai is showing us, is telling us that if someone hears Torah and it's hard for him to understand it, it's still kedai, go and hear it and don't understand it. It's still worth it to go and hear it and don't understand it, because eventually when you get to the next world, now you'll be zochet to hear it again and completely understand it. In the Pedinim al Torah, Rav Sheinbaum wants to say, because the truth is, when we listen to Torah, there are two parts of us listening to Torah. There's the guf and there's the neshama. So the guf understands as much as it understands. Some people understand it more. They have more of a holy body. Some people understand it less. They have less of a holy body. But the neshama still hears it. So the body hears it and the soul hears it. And when the soul hears it, it's able to keep it and understand it when it goes to Olam Haba. So the truth is, it's always worth it to listen. Hashem's words, the full meaning of every word, we can never understand. So all of us will have a fuller understanding in Olam Haba. Everybody, even if everyone has a very good understanding here, the truth is we only understand in a limited amount. But if you learn it here, you'll be zochet to learn it again in Olam Haba. Here, in the Pedinim al Torah, he brings a story about there was a guy growing up in Amsterdam right after World War II, a young man. And he found out what the Germans and what the Goyim in Amsterdam did to the Jews. And he felt very bad about it. He decided that he was going to go to the land of Israel, where the Jews were, and he was going to get a job to help Jews. That was his tshuva, his way of repenting for his ancestors, his father, and everyone. And he ended up getting a position in like in a home for severely challenged children. So children who were born with all sorts of defects or problems. And he went to work over there. And this is his way to give back to the Jewish people. He was helping such physical and mentally challenged children, and he would help them. He started the job, and a few months in, he noticed that a woman would come every single day to see her 2-year-old baby. The baby was severely handicapped, unable to move, unable to think. It just lay there. For all intents and purposes, it didn't know what was going on. And the mother, he found out, took 3 buses a day, 2 hours each way, just to come and visit her 2-year-old son who doesn't even know what's going on in the world. Very sick. And she would come over every single day, kiss him on the forehead. She would comb his hair. She placed a talit katan, a pair of tzitzit on him. She would say the brachot with the baby. She would say moda'ani. She would say shema. And she would then read some Torah, some midrashim, some stories. For 3 straight months, this man saw this. And he started to think, this woman must have lost her mind. She had a baby. The baby's very sick. And so every day she spends 2 hours getting it, 3 buses. She goes through this whole process every single day. And he felt very bad for her. And he walks over to her one of the days and says, Geveret, why are you doing this? Are you coping with your tragedy this way? Are you trying to deal with your tragedy? You have to be realistic. The boy's sick. He's never going to understand what you're doing. You have to stop. You're killing yourself. You're wasting your time. And the woman looked into this man's eyes and she said, you think I'm speaking to his body? You think I don't know that he's sick and he can't hear me, doesn't understand? You think I'm crazy? I'm very normal. I know that he doesn't understand a word I'm saying, but that's his body, his guf. His neshama is there. And his neshama, that's eternal, that's forever. Whatever I teach him and show him here, it's going to help him for always. And that's why I come every single day to teach him Torah, to sit with him and pray with him, put on a talit. This guy, he said at that point, when I heard this, I had to be Megayer. And he became Megayer because he said, I want to be part of a nation that talks to nishamot, that talks to souls. They don't just talk to bodies. This is from the Ben Ish Chai when he says, Hakel ta'am ha'anashim v'anashim. The men you teach, the woman they listen. Listening already is huge. It goes to the neshama and it has a huge effect. But obviously, the real question is, like the Gemara says, the hataf, and you bring the little children. Why you bring the little children? To give rewards to those who brought them. That's the Gemara says. The Gemara says you bring them in order to give reward to the children, to the parents who brought them. The Sefer HaChinuch says that the mitzvah of Hakel is something that's unique to Judaism. It's what differentiates us as a people, as a religion, from anyone else. Because in every other religion, there's only unique, special people. The whole nation doesn't count. Right? All of Klal Yisrael got the Torah. All of Klal Yisrael to come and hear the Torah. It's not just the men, or just the women, or just the children. It's always an entire nation. Now we really know that the fact that the children come makes a big difference as well. The Malbim says children come, they don't understand the Torah that's being read. They're not going to understand anything. But what they're going to see, they're going to see millions of Jews gathered together for the sole purpose of hearing the word of Hashem. That itself will leave an impression on the neshamot that will never ever go away. Now today we don't have Hakel, we don't have a Beit HaMikdash, but in essence we do have times where all of Klal Yisrael gets together, or at least a lot of Klal Yisrael gets together. Well, first is every Simchat Torah, almost every shul has a jam-packed shul, and there's dancing and there's singing. Bringing children to there, that's why we give them flags and candies and stuff like that. That's the impression of sweetness of Torah. But even more so, now we're always zocheh every 7.5 years to the Siyum HaShas, where so many Jews come together. Bringing little children there, Rabbi Fran says that itself will give such an impression to the child of how many people are celebrating learning the Talmud. That's hakel that we can do this year, that we can do in our life. When a child, Rav Pam says, Rav Pam's not going to talk on a personal level. So we talked about on a public level, Daf Yomi, Simchat Torah, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the kids come, they see it. Rav Pam says on a personal level, he says when a child sees his father at home learning, that creates a love for that. Like the Malbim says, the kids are going to learn about what they see when they come there. They're going to see everyone there. That's what they're going to learn. So he says the same thing at home. When a child sees his father learning, he's going to learn. Because he sees the father reading the newspaper or being on the phone all day or whatever it is, then that's what he's going to come to love. Rav Pam would say that when he had his firstborn, one day his firstborn came over to him, like, I don't know, it was 2 or 3, whatever it was, and he said, he pulled the Rambam off the shelf, came to his father and said, Ambam. Why? Because every time Rav Pam would learn the Rambam at home, he would take his son and put it on his lap. So he associated sitting on his father's lap, something that he liked, with the Rambam. And so he became someone who wanted the Rambam. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avot tells us, Rav Yehoshua ben Hananiah, it says, what is his praise? Praiseworthy is she who bore him, the one who gave birth to him. Right? And Tiferet Yisrael quotes the Gemara in Yishalmi in Yevamot that says that his mother brought the baby carriage to the Beit Midrash. Right? Unfortunately, after Rosh Hashanah, I was walking home, and someone said there's too many kids in shul. It was too noisy. I wanted to tell them, Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah's mother brought the baby to the middle of the Beit Midrash. Everybody was there. I'm sure the baby was crying at some point. Yeah, babies cry. And he was there. And this developed with him to become great in Torah. Rav Pam says, listen to what Rav Pam says. Medical science has documented the long-term damage to the health of those exposed to harmful substances during their infancy. Even secondhand smoke. You put a baby next to secondhand smoke, it affects. It can affect their whole life. Rav Pam says one cannot discount the spiritual dangers which children experience by being exposed to improper things. A lot of times people say, small boy, it's okay. You can go see, you can go do, you can that. Mom says no. What the children are already exposed to at a young age, that already affects them. That's why they come to Hakel. They come to Hakel to be exposed to that. They come to the Siyum HaShas to be exposed to that. So it affects them. It affects them even in the womb. Like Rabbi Shmuel says. This is how you have to be careful. The greatest care must be taken to protect our children from spiritual dangers. Rafan here writes, our friend says he bought a book for his wife. It was called A Day in the Life of Israel. And he had 60 of the best photographers in the world. They went to Israel to take pictures of what's going on in Israel. And he saw one photo of a newborn nursery in Bnei Brak. So in Bnei Brak, one of the hospitals, a newborn nursery. There was pictures of rows of little infants in plastic cribs lined up in the nursery. And in one of the cribs, there's a picture book open to the pictures of Rav Shach, the Steipler Gaon, and the Hazon Ish. There in the cradle, in the hospital, pictures of Gedolim surround this baby. The book is not a religious book, it's a secular book. And the caption is, education starts early in Israel. Right? This is how it is. This is how it is. It explains the child is young, he's small, but his subconscious is already going to be exposed and affected to what's around him. So has v'shalom or has v'chalilah to take our kids to wrong places and say, hey, it's okay, they're small, it's all right. No, already from a young age. So the people who told me Rosh Hashanah, oh, there's too many kids here. First of all, I said, I was also in shul and I didn't hear anything. I was here, the show were fine. I heard everything okay. I don't know why you guys had a problem with it. But in the Adrabah, the kids are here. It's better. They see it. They're part of it. They're joining it. They feel it. Obviously, we did tell them to behave as much as we can and stuff like that. But I would find it very difficult for me, myself, to tell kids, you have to come out now because we're blowing the shofar. It's just the feeling the kid would have, and the feeling to say that, it's cruel, I think. And therefore, I think this lesson of Hakel comes right in the beginning of Parshat Vayelech, right between Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Simchat Torah. The kids is the future. And I know kids in the shul, that's terrible. I mean, the shul's not going to have any future. The kids are there. Yeah, you have to control them as much as you can. Yeah, they're going to make a balagan. Yeah, they're going to break something. It's just inevitable. But the fact that they're there, they're coming, they're enjoying, they're being a part of it, they're not even davening, they're not even doing the right, but they're there. They're exposed to Kiddushah. That already makes all the difference. Pam says in the Vidui, on Yom Kippur, we say, all that we took off the yoke of heaven. He says, you know what this means? This means taking off the yoke of parenthood. That we took off the yoke of serving Hashem from our children. When we think it's okay to show our kids stuff that are improper, we're taking away from them the ability to have Yirat Shamayim. If we are showing them things that they shouldn't see or exposing them to things that they shouldn't be exposed to, we're taking away from them the ability to serve Hashem correctly. The lesson of Hakel should impress upon us the knowledge that our children are the most precious possessions and must be protected from the perils of the outside world. And on the opposite direction, they should be put in the right surroundings, in the right atmosphere, with the right people at all times. This is our first lesson on this week's Parashat. We had the Ben Ish Chai for the woman to hear, and we had from Rav Pam and Rav Fran from the Malbim what it means the kids should be exposed to proper ideas. We're going to move on to another lesson in this week's Parashat. In this week's Parashat, we have the famous pasuk, V'anochi haster haster panai bayom hahu. Yeah, from that song, that's correct. And the translation is that I will surely have concealed my face on that day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. That there was going to be trouble, there's going to be problems, going to be stuff there's going to be problems for Klal Yisrael. That's the time that it's known that Hashem is doing Haster Panim, that Hashem is closing his face. Just because, we have to understand something, just because we don't see Hashem doesn't mean that Hashem is not there. Rav Gadel Eisner shared with his Talmidim 3 powerful insights of what it means, Haster Panim. He took a book, put it down on the table, and said, if I would build a building over the book, would that mean the book is no longer there? Or does that mean you just don't see the book? If you cannot see Hashem and cannot understand his actions, he's still there. Just you can't see it. He's still right there. Then he said, another example. He took a bottle of soda and he took off the cap. And he puts it in his hand. He says, now you know the cap is in my hand, right? Even though you can't see, you know it's in my hand. Now let's say you walk in from the outside without you seeing me put it in my hand. And you come in and you look everywhere and you don't find the cap. Does that mean the cap is not here? It's in my hand. You don't know it's there. Hashem is right next to us. You could be looking all over the room and you don't see him. Hashem is right next to us. Although in our short-sightedness, we're not always aware of his presence. And then he gave one last example. If you're looking at a diamond in front of you on the table, you're a diamond dealer, you're looking at diamonds, and all of a sudden there's a blackout. Right? It's the middle of the night. It's a blackout. There's no lights, no battery, nothing. Is the diamond still on the table? Or that's it, because you can't see it. It's not there anymore. It's still there. It's still there. You're hoping that soon the lights will come on and you'll see again. He says the same thing is true by us. From time to time, We're able to feel Hashem's presence. We're able to see the Yad Hashem. We're able to see the hand of God. We're able to see how He's manipulating life. And there are times that you don't see it. The lights are out. But just because you don't see it doesn't mean that He's not there. Therefore, we have to protect His identity and guard His sanctity. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Miberditchev would say, when it comes to Hashem, one can be for Hashem, or he can be against Hashem. But one can never say that he's not with Hashem. You can be for Hashem, you can be against Hashem, but you cannot be saying that there is no Hashem. The Almighty never leaves us. If we do not see Him, you have to look harder. There was a story that was told, and this story was made very famous in Eretz Yisrael, even by the Chilonim. So there was what's called twin cities. They make a pact between a city in Eretz Yisrael and a city somewhere else in the world, and they share, stuff, and this way they help each other out. Twin cities, right. So in the lower Galil, sister cities. So the lower Galil, the guy in charge over there was a person named Moti Dotan. And they were twin cities, sister cities, with a city in Hanover, in Germany. And this person from Hanover, he came to Eretz Yisrael for whatever meeting they were having, whatever celebration. And he walked over to this guy, Moti Dotan, and he says, listen, I have to give you something. He says, my father was Werner Herzig, and my father recently died. And before he died, he called me, and he wanted to share with me a secret. He told me that as a young, healthy German male, he was drafted into the army, and he fought in World War II. And he was involved with some awful crimes against the Jews, killing them just because they were Jews. And he says, and one of those sins was, on the Russian front, they burnt the shul down to the ground with everything in it and everyone in it. And he says, I have to tell you this, what happened. Because people in the world are denying it, I myself, as a soldier in the army, in the German army, I'm going to tell you what happened. And then he pulls out a piece of parchment and he gives it to Moti Dotan. And he says, this is the parchment my father gave me. He says right before they burnt down that shul, he went to the Sefer Torah, cut a piece out to wrap his wallet in it, to put his officer's ID and documents inside of it. My father felt very bad before his deathbed, and he asked me to please return this to the Jews and give it to one of their holy men. So I'm asking you to please give this to one of your rabbis here in Israel. And let this be proof that the atrocity did happen. Now Moti Dotan didn't know who to give it, what to do with it. There was a rabbi, a famous rabbi in Eretz Yisrael, Rav Yitzchak David Grossman of Migdal HaEmek. And he went and he gave to Rabbi Grossman this parchment. As soon as Rabbi Grossman heard the story, you can imagine he was crying. And he said 70 years had passed since that day that they burnt down that shul. And finally the piece of Sefer Torah has come back home to Klal Yisrael. Then Rabbi Grossman takes the piece of parchment, opens it up, and he's shocked. He reads the Torah, the portion of the Torah. It so happens that the portion that this guy cut out, this German soldier cut out, was Parshat Kitavo. It was the curses that Moshe Rabbeinu says that were going to happen to the Jewish people if they don't listen to Hashem. The Tochicha was the chosen text that this guy took, not knowing what he took, to use to protect his wallet. The Rav read the parchment, in the siege and distress that your enemy will distress you in your own cities, and Hashem will make extraordinary your blows and the blows of your offspring, great and faithful blows, and evil and faithful illnesses. Even any illness and any blow that is not written in this book, them will Hashem bring upon you until you are destroyed. You'll be left few in number, whereas you were as the stars of the heaven in abundance. Hashgacha pratit. After 70 years, this document back to Eretz Yisrael as a wake-up call. The Nazi could have cut any piece of parchment from the Torah. How many dafim were there? How many pages? And yet it was that point. He says over here, there's so much to learn from this story. We see the embodiment of evil. After destroying a shul, the monster had no problem with taking a Torah scroll and destroying it and using it for his wallet. But little did he realize he was truly preserving the relationship that Hashem has with his people. It's all about Hasteh Panim. Hashem is not there, right? You think he's not there, all these problems are happening. But there it is, Parshat Ki Tavo, where it says exactly what will happen if we don't follow Hashem's ways. Hashem has always been there. Hashem has never left us. We'll share one more quick story about this idea. And this is a true story that happened in Iran in the year 1979 when Ayatollah Khamenei took a bunch of his terrorists that were with him, and they kind of went against the Shah of Iran. The Shah of Iran was very friendly with Israel, right? And the Jews were living in Iran for about 2,500 years up until the fall of the Shah. And as soon as the Shah was taken out, the Jews were the next targets. And all the wealthy Jews were hunted down. And one prominent businessman, a Jew who was close to the Shah, was killed in cold blood. And the family knew that they had to get out, and they had to get out now. So the father, the husband, knew these things were going on, and he put into place a way for his family to escape. And he told his wife that if he doesn't come back on a certain day, she needs to run with the kids. They had 4 little kids. Run with the kids to the marketplace and look for a certain person, and they're going to help her escape. He didn't come back that day. She told her children, we have to go shopping late at night. And they went out to the marketplace. And she found the man there, and the man said, come with me quickly. She had 4 kids. The youngest were 7 and 5. This man took them and said, follow me quickly. No talking, no anything. They just started to walk. And she left all her money behind, her whole house. She wasn't able to sell anything, maybe a bag of valuables, and that's it. They walked through most of the night. The little ones were trying to cry, but this person that was leading them started to give them very, very stern looks. Finally, they made it outside the city. There was a couple of camels waiting for them. They were getting onto the camels, and the kids again started to cry, and they said, we don't want to go, we're tired. 7 and 5, imagine. The man that was escorting them takes out a gun, points it at the little kids, and says, if you don't follow me right now, I'll shoot you and your mom right here, right now. So they have no choice but to keep quiet. And they get onto the camels and they travel. Halfway through their travels, they meet a group of nomads who basically steal every possession that's on them. Whenever she was able to take out with her, everything is stolen from them. And they continue to go on these camels as far as they can. They make it to the river. And he says, we have to go on foot. They go through the river. They're getting the feet cut and everything. Imagine, again, the children are crying. And again, this man takes out his gun and points it to the mom and says, if you tell your kids to be quiet, they don't listen, I'll shoot you. And so it was. They continued. And finally, they were close to the border of Turkey. And they had to go over a bridge. And the bridge looked very shaky. It's already a few days in. They had a little bit of water that this man kept giving them. But other than that, hungry, pretty much dehydrated, scratched up, torn, beaten. And the mother says, listen, I can't. This bridge looks like it's going to fall. The man again takes out his gun and points at her and says, if you don't go right now, I'll shoot you right here. She goes over the bridge holding the sides. She goes over. She's now in Turkey. And she tells her kids, come. And one after the other, each one makes it across. He comes over as well. And as soon as he comes over, he kisses every child. And he says, you should know, I'm a Jew just like you. You have to forgive me for being mean to you and pointing my gun at you. But I needed to act this way. Otherwise, you would have given up a long time ago. And you wouldn't have crossed over all those places and done all those things. At that point, the woman understood it. The kids understood it. Here he says, there are times when Hashem leads us on a journey. It's difficult. It's trying. We feel as though he doesn't love us or care about us. But if we only knew that Hashem hides himself so that we could survive, that for some reason Hashem needs to hide himself so we'd be able to become better and bigger people. But at the end of the journey, he will finally reveal that it was HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then we will know that everything that happened to us was for the best. Let's look at one last lesson from this week's parasha. The pasuk says, "V'haya ki timtze'enu oto ra'ot rabot v'tzarot." It shall be when many evils and distresses come upon him. The Gemara in Chagiga, the way that Tosafot learns this, the Gemara in Chagiga says, why would so many bad things happen to a person? So Tosafot says, you know why? It comes as a punishment for someone who makes money available to a poor person when that person is bishat dahako, when he's in a very hard time. So according to Tosafot, bad things happen to people when they help a poor person when he's down on his luck. Now that's very hard to understand. What would be wrong with helping a poor person when he's down on his luck? Furthermore, the Gemara Masechet Yevamot says that when you lend money to a poor person who is in a pressing need, Hashem will help you. As it says in Yeshaya, then you will call and Hashem will respond. You will cry out and he will say, here I am. So, you have a big problem here. One place says if you help a person when he's needy, that's when all the curses come to you. And another Gemara says, no. When you help a person when he's needy, that's when Hashem will help you. The Dubna Magid, Zecher Tzadik Lebracha, explains. He says there's two types of way to help a poor person. You see a person struggling. You see his business struggling. So what do? You go and support the business. You go inside. You go help. You send your friends to help him out. You buy from him. You see a poor person trying to get a business. You give him a job. You hire him. You do something. And then there's another way to help a poor person. Let him fall entirely on his luck. I have nothing to do. And then you come and say, here, let me help you. But which one is the better way to help? Once he falls completely?
No. It's harder to bring him up once he falls.
Exactly. The Dubna Magid says, the Pasuk, the Gemara says, all the bad things happen to you when you help a poor person, when he's needy. That is a poor person who you let fall. And now you're coming to help him. Yeah, you're coming to help him. Shkoyach, thank you. But now it's very late. And that's why all these bad things are happening to you, because you helped them too late. And when the Gemara says, the Gemara in Yevamot says that if you help a poor person when he's down on his luck, you'll be helped. The Magen says, yes, you will be helped. But when? At the end. When you need help, do you want to wait till the last minute? When the Pasuk says, then you will call and Hashem will respond, you will cry out and he will say, here I am. That means after your problem is getting so big, it's the worst. Everything just kept spiraling out of control. And now Hashem says, you helped the poor person when he was down on his luck. You waited to the last minute? I'm going to help you at the last minute too. I'll let you fall. I'll let you drown. Let all the bad things happen to you. And now I'll come help you. He says to the Magid, that's not the way you help a poor person. We say, like we read on the Ta'anit, before we call out, Hashem should answer. That's how you have to help a poor person. And that's how Hashem will respond to you. If you see somebody needs help, you don't wait until they call me. He didn't call me. He didn't say. He didn't tell me he needs help. You see he needs something, you go, you do it. A person must be finally attuned to the needs of those surrounding him. This is the optimum level of tzedakah. This is Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu saw someone, you're hungry, eat. You need a place to sleep, sleep. That's what it means to do tzedakah v'chesed. The Rambam writes about the importance of tzedakah in a Jew's life. He says a person should be very careful in performing this mitzvah, because when a person does the mitzvah of tzedakah, he is showing he's from Zera Avraham Avinu. He shows that you are connected to Avraham Avinu. If you do not get tzedakah, you're showing you're not connected to Avraham. That's how important you have to do tzedakah. He says, the Rambam writes, Jews are like brothers. Giving tzedakah to a Jew will never cause a person harm. If you don't have mercy on your brother, who will? Will the Goyim have? His eyes are turned to his Jewish people. These and other words, the Rambam writes in Yad HaChazakah, have greatly inspired Jews for a millennium the fulfillment of the special mitzvah. Rav Pam says, but the Rambam was not only Noed Doresh, beautifully teaching, he's Na'em Mikayim, that he also fulfilled this. At one point, Rabbi Yehuda ibn Tibon wanted to translate the Moreh Nevuchim, the guide to the perplexed, of the Rambam. Rambam wrote it in Arabic, the vernacular of the Jews of the time in his place. And Rabbi Yehuda ibn Tibon wanted to write it into Hebrew. Now, whenever you translate something, you're really interpreting it, because you have to understand it. Then you have to translate it in different words to explain the ideas that are going into the Sefer. So he wrote a letter to the Rambam saying he wants to meet up with him so he could understand the Rambam's ideas more to be able to translate it correctly. And the Rambam writes a reply. The Rambam tells him, I'm sorry, I have no time to meet with you. And the Rambam says, I'll tell you why. He says, my day begins before dawn. I depart on my donkey and I go to the Sultan's palace. There, I must be available to examine, diagnose, and heal anything that's bothering the Sultan or any member of his large royal household, including his many wives and children. If there's nothing wrong that day, I complete my duties early afternoon, and then I head home on my donkey. When I get near my house, I can see a line of people, a mass of people, Jews and non-Jews, friend and enemy, already waiting impatiently to consult with me about their medical problems. The Rambam says, I get off my donkey and I apologize to the crowd and I ask them to wait a few minutes until I have opportunity to eat something, as I had not a chance until then to eat. I have a quick meal. I allow the patients to enter. After a short time, I cannot stand or sit anymore. I must lay down. But I still see them. They come in one after the other and I examine them. All free of charge, the Rambam says. I don't charge a single patient. To this one I prescribe medicine. To the other suggest a change in diet. And this goes on until well past nightfall, when the last patient departs. Thus you see, I have no time to meet with you and discuss with you the translation of my book. And then he says, and if you think that you can come to see me on Shabbat, you're wrong. I am the Chacham of the community. And on Shabbat, the leaders of the community come to discuss with me the problems that have arisen during the course of the week. They come to discuss halachic dilemmas. They come to discuss how to distribute the charity, the tzedakah. Therefore, when can I find time to talk to you? Between the lines of this remarkable letter is an insight into the glimpse of the Rambam's love of Hesed. In the Rambam's Yad HaChazakah, in the beginning, he writes there how a person can live a good long life. What the diet he has to have, what type of sleep he has to have, and has to have all of that. And the Rambam knew all that. And yet the Rambam didn't do that. The Rambam himself, he said he didn't eat until late in the day. He ate his quick meal. He was up treating everybody. He writes in many letters, I'm at the end of my strength. I'm always at the end of my strength, the Rambam writes. Why did he curtail his medical practice that was free of charge? He didn't stop. He kept helping person after person. And the Rambam, without the Rambam, what do we have today? A lot of halachot, they're all based on the Rambam. Imagine if he would have said, I'm closing my medical practice, which is free of charge, and I would have spent more time in learning Torah and writing more Sfarim. The answer is, this was the greatness of the Rambam. He was not only the great pillar of Torah of his generations. Today, everything, we're always learning about what the Rambam say. How did the Rambam understand? Shulchan Aruch goes with the Rambam how many times? Always, almost. With his tireless devotion to his people, he was the pillar of Hesed in Tzedakah. He was what he wrote. He wrote about tzedakah. You have to keep doing it. Look what people need. Give. He himself did that. He lived what he wrote about. Rav Pam says similar with Rav Moshe Feinstein. Everybody knows Moshe Feinstein was psak. He was the pillar of psak halacha. He was the Poisek Hador. He was also a person of Havat Hesed. He helped everybody anytime he could. Rav Moshe Rivlin once asked him, "How do you have the strength to go to so many simchot? In one night, Rav Moshe would be on how many weddings, how many bar mitzvahs, and he always went. He never told no. He always went. He went. And he said, I say it in Yiddish, then we'll translate, Vilang mikantun darf mentun. As long as we can do, we have to do. It means you have opportunity chesed, have to do tzedakah, you have to do it. It comes right before Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, we're in the start to make Shuvah. These lessons are so important. What it means to help another person, to live that, like the Rambam lived it, to do it at all times, to curtail your own health, your own learning, in order to help other people. So to review the 3 lessons that we learned number 1, how important it is to learn Torah. If you don't learn it, at least listen to it, because that's a huge thing. And important is for the kids to be in the right surroundings and to be exposed to the right things. We learned what it means, Haster Panim, that Hashem is concealed. It means He's there, you just don't see Him. But you'll see Him soon if you just look a little harder. And then the final lesson was, don't wait for someone to be in trouble to help them, but rather help them as soon as you know they need help. And help them beyond your means. As the Rambam says, a person will never suffer if he helps somebody, and he proves to the world that he's from the children of Avraham Avinu when he does that. And we definitely need the zechut of Avraham Avinu as we just went through Yemei Hadin, through the days of judgment, and we're going to the days of atonement, Yom Kippur. May that zechut of Avraham Avinu be with us. And I'm wishing everybody a Shabbat Shalom. See you all next time.